Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. So, what is justice? Justice is something that often comes with punishment. And in a sense, it always comes with punishment. As people choose to sacrifice their loyalty to God, to sacrifice their morality, to sacrifice the essence of loyalty to their family, which is being loyal to God and leading them to be loyal to God by example. As they sacrifice these things, they are sacrificing these things for a certain idea. What is the difference between Nimrod and Nebuchadnezzar when the Bible is interpreted correctly? Well, Nimrod is a mighty warrior for the Lord, Exodus 15:3, which is the next book after Genesis. It says the Lord is a warrior, the Lord is his name, overkilling that Nimrod's a righteous person. That's when Babylon was great. Nebuchadnezzar connects to Ezekiel chapter 14 or so, where God says he will lead people astray if they commit to false prophets, that he's going to go ahead and lead them astray. We see that in Proverbs chapter 9, where it says, folly is an unruly woman who says stolen water is sweet, food eaten in secret is delicious, and her followers, her guests, those spirits in her house are in the realm of the dead, right? Her house, the house of rebellion, the house of cheating me out of my right to lead, what have you, versus the house of David, which is a spiritual house. This is part of why we know that there's no Jew or Gentile, there's only righteous or unrighteous when you look at it in terms of the Bible. You take this kind of long path to a place where you can get rather quickly with the greatest commandment and the golden rule by themselves masterfully applied. So the house of David isn't his flesh-based house or his literal physical building he lived in. It is a collection of souls and spirits that are in the Spirit of God, the root and offspring of that temple, that collection of people, and the projection they're making. That is the house of David. For example, if you look at it in terms of kung fu clans or samurai fiefs, samurai collections, you say that is that school, that is that group of people, that clan of people, that group of warriors, that group of martial artists. Okay, the house of David is a group of warriors, a group of morally precise martial artists. That's what it's superimposed on. Okay, because the Bible is a story and stories with a moral and morals. And the central moral is the greatest commandment and the golden rule combined, which are both saying the same thing. Right? If you love God with all your heart, you'll do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Key word is do. So as you consider what justice is, you first have to do God justice and the divine order justice. You have to be within the boundaries of righteousness and justice and moving in the way of righteousness, or you're being misled by Babylon's system, which is a system of all those who are foreign to the Royal African Falcon martial art order. And again, when I say African, it's a better way of saying human, because when we think human, we think of a Eurocentric model because of all the Eurocentric schools and colonialism that has occurred in recent history. Now, it's also centered in Africa because God made man in his image in Africa, and God made his martial art order in Africa. Okay, where do martial arts come from? There was once an Asian person who wrote a book, and he said flat out, martial arts come from Africa. It goes way back to when mankind would learn how to fight from nature, from animals, what have you. And so it is a Royal African Falcon martial order, just like they say, Kung Fu, right? Shaolin Kung Fu, they say Shaolin. And I was told that it comes from the Shaoxi forest in Asia, okay, in Tibet or China or something to this effect. Okay, I'm guessing Tibet. Now, when we're talking about the Royal African Falcon martial art order, it comes from Africa. And that is important because it's helping your brain orient itself. It's interesting how the word orient and oriental are connected. But if you were to look to the Oriental peoples in their land and you were to analyze it carefully, it would point to Africa. And I'm not a racial supremacist. These are just the facts here. Recently, they said they found some kind of humanoid skull, which they're trying to argue rewrites the human story. And they try to argue that it magically starts in Asia. Now, this is problematic for many reasons. One, we know they've been lying about these things for quite some time, right? The history of Eurocentric scientists. Two, there's a conflict right now with North Korea and China, and they're trying to divide black and Asian people and other people of color, you know, and everyone is aware of that, right? There's the immigration thing going on, the deportations, there's the clash with Iran, there's, you know, the political split in regards to who supports Palestine and why, and who doesn't and why, and so on and so forth. So that's pretty straightforward. Three, there's an abundance of evidence of waves of migrations from an African starting point. The waves of migrations aren't occurring from an Asian starting point, right? When we look at the map, it says, you know, 130,000 years ago, 125,000 years ago, they land in India, right? And, you know, however many tens of thousands of years ago, they land in Europe. And they show waves of migrations and the evidence of people spreading out from Africa, an overwhelming amount of evidence. So, again, I'm just saying this, these are the facts. I'm not a racial supremacist, you know. If a gorgeous Asian woman or white person or Jewish person or any race came to me and I fell in love with them, I'd marry that person without thinking twice. I wouldn't think, hey, how does this affect my race? Or I'm already part black, what would people think? I'm already part white, what will people think? You know, and part Jewish, what will people think? No, I would immediately follow my heart. And before, when I was willing to have kids long ago, okay, my kid, let's say the person was all Chinese, they would be mostly Chinese. They wouldn't be mostly black or mostly white or Jewish. Okay, and I'm not a racial supremacist. And I would still teach that kid the same thing. And if that kid married another Chinese person or another Asian or another race, and they have even less black in them, I'd still teach them the same thing because it's the truth. And I'm not a racial supremacist. So that's another distinction that's made there. When I think of people trying to make a martial art order or a religious order from another race, they're concerned with ethnocentrism. They're concerned with their people's relationship to other people's, what have you. Where I'm concerned with the absolute truth. So when we look at justice, right, for the same reason I would tell every race that they must accept that it's the Royal African Falcon Martial Order, and I do tell them that, in fact. You must first do God justice, then me, then the divine order, and then everyone else, right? There's an order of importance. There's commandments and a chain of command, and there's commands.